Greetings, everyone. Thank you for attending my presentation on the economy today. I really always appreciate having my friends out there. Thank you for doing that. I want to just say a couple of things. First of all, I hope you and your families are healthy and safe and happy, and I hope that same for your employees. I know it's been a really difficult year. I know your business has been great, but many of us had problems dealing with the facts that we can't see maybe our kids or our grandkids. Maybe we can't travel. Maybe we can't go to restaurants or a ball game. Everybody struggled, and I know that. My goal today is to assure you that our lives are going to get back to normal over the next few months, maybe by the end of summer. And I think that you're going to see that in my numbers today. So let me start when I talk about the American economy. Where do we go from here, and what exactly does it all mean? Well, as usual, today's leading economic indicator is the coronavirus. It's what drives all of our numbers, and I have to begin with this. Don't like to, but I have to. Let me show you where we're at. These are the cases, the current hospitalizations, and the new deaths that we have. This is great news in America, because if you look at the numbers here, right here where we have cases, we're down 70% just literally in the last month or so. So that number is going in the right direction. It plateaued here, as you see, but overall it's going in the right direction. We're feeling pretty good about that. Hospitalizations, you see the peak here, they're down 50%, again, going in the right direction. And deaths, I would say the same thing. You can see that it's dropped about 30%. So if we continue with this kind of direction over the next 3 or 4 months, we're going to be in great shape. If it goes back up because of the variants, well, then all bets are off. Let me just show you where we're at right now. 220 million, remember that number. We start with the fact that we've had 29,504 cases of coronavirus in America. Let's call that 30 million cases of people in this country that have the antibodies. In the past 5 weeks, we've vaccinated 50 million people in America. And over the next 3 months, March, April, and May, we're expecting to vaccinate at least 140 million. And the numbers are actually going up, so it could be 160, even 180 million by the time we get to the end of May. In addition to that, we have purchased now enough vaccines for over 300 million Americans. So how do I get the 220? I add up those three numbers, and that's where we're at. We're getting close to herd immunity when we do that, and that should be sometime by midsummer. That's good news in America. Now, the problem with it is this, that we have the variants. And the variants are a serious issue that we have as we look forward in the economy. The first one is the B.1.1.7, that's the British variant, more infectious, more deadly. Behind that is the South African variant, B.1.3.5.1. Not as many cases right now, but more deadly than the British variant. And then we have the newest one, the P.1 variant, which is the variant from Brazil. And that's the most deadly and the most infectious, and the ones that we're most concerned about. Let me show you where we're at around the country. These are the hot spots. You can see here in Florida, 500 to 600 cases. That's where it's at right now, the biggest issue. We also have California and Michigan. And then it's in every state in the union, except for about 5 right now. But I'll bet you that in 2 weeks, every state in America, the entire country will be with one form of the variant or another. This is a huge problem. We're hoping to outrace it with vaccines. We're hoping to get enough people vaccinated that we can keep this low in the country, and then maybe avoid it altogether. Here's what the experts are saying. The Moderna founder, Noubar, Afeyan, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, and other experts around the country, this is what they said. By the time we get to early fall, we will have enough good herd immunity to be able to really get back to some strong semblance of normality. Schools, theaters, sports, events, restaurants. I believe if we do these correctly, we will be there by early fall. Now, he's not the only one that said this, including people like Dr. Fauci and others who believe that midsummer to early fall, we're going to be back to normal in America. And I think that's good news for all of us. Now, I'm no expert on the vaccine. I don't pretend to be. So I'm going to end it there. I'll just tell you that the variants are the scariest thing that we're facing right now. If it was COVID-19 by itself, the numbers speak for themselves. We've dropped that number dramatically, and I think it'll continue to drop as we get vaccines in America. Let's talk about where we're at as a country. And I always begin with consumer confidence because it tells really the whole story about where we're going in this country. And I have to begin historically and give you a number that I think you've all seen before. Consumer confidence in December 2008, it reached an all-time low of 34.6. A number that we've never seen before, and you all lived through that. You know what it was like when people are not feeling confident about the economy. That's where we're at. Let's fast forward to these numbers here. The reason why we use consumer confidence is you can see these gray lines right here. it predicts recessions. So look at 81, 82, the double dip recession of that period. We saw consumer confidence drop dramatically. We went into recession. We saw it again in 91, a dramatic drop in consumer confidence, and then recession. The dot-com recession, the same thing. And then here's the big recession, the Great Recession of 2008, 2009. We had a dramatic drop all the way down to 34.9, and then it came back up. And then you see this over here in 2020, another drop in consumer confidence and another recession. This is what we do with consumer confidence. Let's go forward to consumer confidence, January 2021. That is last month, 88.9. When it's below 90, as you'll see on the graph here, below 90 indicates we're in a shrinking economy. 88.9 is not good. It's down 40 points from where it was last January, but step into 1 month further, February, we're up 2.4 points. Now that's not a big shake, but what that means is we're in an area that's stable. Anything between 90 and 100 on the index means that we're in a stable economy as we move forward. That's good news in America. We feel good about that. And we think it'll go up going forward. Here's my best case, worst case scenario. And I'm basing this on the variance, okay? So best case, low impact of the variance. Right now, I see it being 116 consumer confidence index with about a 50% probability. I believe that's where it'll hit. And even with the baseline forecast of 94, that would still be in the stable range. Now, let me say this about the economy. We've been through a really difficult year. We've had 3 different spikes in the virus, over 500,000 deaths, and the consumer confidence in America is still at 94. I think that's incredible. And when I give you these numbers, I'm basing it on the fact that people have stayed confident and have spent money even in the worst of scenarios. And here you go. This is the worst case, 62, and that's 15% probability. I don't think that's going to happen. Why do I present consumer confidence first? Well, because it's 73% of our gross domestic product. Consumer spending is what we do, and confident Americans spend money. Let me take it through 20 years and look at this graph here. It is so rare that we go underwater or spend less in consumer spending in any given year. You can see it's only happened twice in more than 20 years. So this tells you a lot about the economy. The average spending in 50 years is 3.6% of growth in consumer spending year over year. That's on average. And as you look across, you'll see that that's where we've been. So that's what we've done. Let me show you this last year. And you may wonder why I have such difficulty now about predicting the future. It's because of these crazy anomalies that exist on these graphs that I'm going to give you. Look at this number here. This is March and April. We saw a drop in consumer spending, something I said rarely happens. It happened -6 and -12%. These are crazy numbers. Then we came back with 2 successive months of huge increases in consumer spending. But then it flatlined. We lost 2 months of the year. And then now let me take you to, I'm sorry, I can't see this. Let me pull this up, Mark. There we go. In January, we increased consumer spending by 2.4%. That's good news. It's a harbinger of our future. It's a predictor of where we're going to be. If people are spending money in January like that, we feel pretty good about that. Here's why it's so hard making these predictions. Again, look at this line all the way up, and then you have this huge dip right here as a result of the virus, and then a return because of some of the money that was spent, stimulus money that was spent in the economy. So consumer spending, this is my best estimate. I think if a low impact of the variance, 70% probability, it'll come in at 4.1%. That's higher than our average. We feel good about that number. We think that's where it's going to be. Moderate impact would be 2.6. And then the worst case scenario, 5% probability. I don't think that's going to happen. Okay, why do we have these variations in the statistics today? What is driving that? Well, it's stimulus spending. We have spent so much in the last 4 years, more than I've ever seen in all the years I've been watching this. And have you ever wondered what $1 trillion looks like? This is a little bit of economist levity, but I'll tell you, this is what it looks like: $1 trillion bill, 1 trillion, 2 trillion. That's what we're going to spend in the next few months if the stimulus package that's in front of Congress today gets passed. And here's what it looks like, okay? This is last year. This is all of 2020. We had 4 different bills, and the big one was the CARES Act, $1.7 trillion. And at the end of the year, we spent $483 billion to try to help the economy, to try to help those people that didn't have jobs, didn't have food, were being evicted from their homes. So overall last year, we spent $2.4 trillion. But what about the 10 trillion I have on the graph here on the very top line? Well, 2.4 trillion here, and then another $2 trillion in a tax cut in 2017. You had 3.3 trillion in quantitative spending. And then you have another 2 trillion here. That adds up to $10 trillion overall impact to the US economy. This is why the numbers look so odd. Let me walk you through them. What about consumer savings? This is good for your business. And as you look at the savings rate, you're going to see that this coming year, you're going to have a very strong year. In March and April, our numbers were up 33% and 24% in consumer savings. And when I talked to you last August, I said that was a trend, and you can see that trend line carried all the way out through the end of the year. We are saving money in America in a very large way. In January alone, we were up 20%. And let me walk you back here. That's the $483 billion right here. Walk you forward, up 20%. That means that people have money to spend. They have money to spend in your store, and that's what's going to happen this year. Here's the anomaly I'm talking about. Look at consumer savings, pretty much across the board, about 7% per year. And all of a sudden it goes up like this because of the stimulus spending that's out there. This is last year. This is January. You can see the impact it has. Let me talk about personal income, because the same issue. Look at it here last year. This is the CARES Act, 12.4% increase in personal income off of about an 0.8 increase given in any given year that we have. There's the flat line. And then here's January, 10% increase as a result of the December spending. Again, money that will be paid forward, money that people have. But let me give you the real dollars, because you don't understand it until you see it in real dollars. So January's up 10%. That means that we have a household wealth increase of almost $2 trillion. You've not seen that in America in my lifetime, and I don't think in your lifetime. Here's personal income again. Why is it so hard to make predictions? This is the CARES Act. This is the current spending that we had in December that's hitting the numbers now. Personal income is at its highest peak we've ever seen in America. Now, what does that all translate to? Well, it translates to higher retail sales. You guys sell appliances, furniture, you sell electronics, and of course you sell mattresses. And retail sales is a number that you would expect to go up when people are holding on to cash like we see in this country right now. Let's take a look. We estimated, economists' consensus estimated that we'd see an increase of 1.1% in retail sales. Actually, it came in at 5.3. You can see it over here in January. That was a huge increase. We weren't expecting it. We saw, a weak Christmas selling season right here, November and December, but we were still not believing that we would see that kind of an increase in January. And that's, again, a predictor of our future. When people step up in January like that, we see a very strong year coming. And your businesses, electronics and appliances and furniture, home furnishings, you have benefited more than anybody else in America, because you have been number one, number two, or number three in these numbers since this pandemic began. Look at you here. You're number two, 15% increase on a 5% overall increase, and look at furniture up 12% overall on a 5% increase. This is a great job. And I think that I know that I've heard Jim Ristow told me recently that a lot of people are tired out there. You've had so much to do in the last year. I believe that you're going to see a similar year this year based on these kinds of numbers. Okay, why is this all happening? Well, I know you guys all know this, and I know we've talked about this at length, but I'll tell you one more time again. People are forming habits. Over the last year or so, we've formed incredible habits of being at home, watching TV, cooking in our homes, getting the best product we can, fixing them up. It's called cocooning. And I was listening the other day to an earnings report from the CEO of Nautilus Equipment that makes gym equipment. And he made this comment. He said 20% of people that have gym memberships will never come back to the gym. And my guess is you could take that 20% number and apply it to just about anything. For example, like going to movies. 20% of people that went to movies won't go again. And as a result of that, they're going to want to buy. That 60 million Americans who make up 20% of the population are going to want to continue to buy for many, many years in the future, big screen TVs and great equipment for their homes. And that means that your business will stay strong throughout that period. So at this point in the presentation, I usually talk about the national debt. And you guys know I've talked to you about the national debt for 10 years. It's been my opinion for 10 years that no matter where it's at, it's not going to impact your business. And I've been right about that. I got to say. So I'm not going to talk about the national debt today. What I'm going to talk about is something, again, that Jim Ristow told me. That a lot of people are saying, well, inflation is going to be a huge problem in America. Is that true? Is putting trillions of dollars in the economy inflationary? Well, of course it is. Of course it is. Absolutely. I'll say that it is. The producer price index, something that economists watch to see what's happening with inflation. These are prices that American producers receive for their goods. It was up 1.3% in January. This is the highest we've ever seen the producer price index increase. That was incredible. We also see the bond markets now signaling inflation in a big way. The 10-year treasury moved from 0.47 to 1.57 in a little over a month. So is that a signal for inflation? Absolutely, 100% it is. But listen, I have somebody that I respect out there that has the tools to control inflation, that is probably the smartest person in the world when it comes to controlling inflation, because he's targeted with controlling inflation in America. And his name's Jerome Powell. And this is what he said just 2 days ago. He said it might take more than 3 years for inflation to hit the Fed's target of 2%. Now, I got to say to you that we've been trying to hit this 2% level since 2009, and we can't get there. So when people tell me, hey, inflation is going to be a problem in America, I say, whoa, wait a minute. Let's take a look at what Jerome Powell says. He says that we won't raise rates before 2023. And I got to believe what he says, because this is the man that can actually take the controls and do things in the marketplace. But let's look at inflation, then and now. Where have we been? There was a point in America, you may not remember this, you may be too young, but where inflation reached 14%. The oil shocks that we had in the 70s drove inflation up in a big way. And let me just say to you out there, many of you probably remember sitting in gas lines back in 1977, 1978, when you wait 2, 3, 4 hours to get a tank of gas. We all did that in this country, but oil's not that big of an issue anymore. We became the leading producer of oil in 2012, and we get most of our oil today from here in America. I'll just make this comment that the Permian Basin today in Texas is the 4th largest producer of oil in the world. So it's not an issue like it used to be. In addition to that, the reason why we don't have inflation, because we're not an inflationary type country like some are around the world. Companies in America can relocate anywhere. You saw in the 90s, because wages in China were 60 cents an hour, they moved to China en masse. They're $7 now, and guess what's happening? They're moving to Bangladesh and they're moving to Vietnam. That's what we do in America. And I guess all of you out there, all of the people on this presentation today, you know for your part that you've also gone online, looked on the internet, and found the cheapest prices and also hold down inflation. Let me give you one more idea here, because I could talk about technology all day. Technology has also been a big help in America in holding down inflation. Let me tell you that what you used to do. You used to get in your car, maybe with your family of 4, and used to drive to the theater, and you'd spend $40 or more, $10 a piece to get in to watch a movie. And while you were there, you spent another $40 on concessions, Pepsis and Cokes and popcorn, you name it. Today you watch Netflix for $15 a month or whatever it costs. I'm not even sure, but you watch Netflix, you can sit in your front living room and you can get your own popcorn and get your own Cokes. That's how we lower inflation in America. And we've not had it in the last 15, 20 years even. So inflation, I don't worry much about inflation. It's kind of like the national debt. It's one of those boogeymen that we put out there and really isn't a part of what America is. Now, let me give you some examples in your own industry when we talk about inflation, because I know Jim thought this was something important. 49 years ago, when I was a young kid at GE, my manager took me out on a call to the Broadway stores in Southern California. Now, I think Broadway was a pretty big chain, one of the largest GE customers at the time. There was a buyer there named Charlie Papke, who was an icon in the industry. And my boss, Jack Fitzpatrick, went out to see Charlie and took him this refrigerator on the left side there, that GE refrigerator, and said, Charlie, this refrigerator is going to be a big hit. It costs $9.99. Do you think it will sell? And Charlie said, Jack, that refrigerator at that price will never sell. Well, that refrigerator became the most popular refrigerator in US history. Now, in order to compare refrigerators on your right side, I went and looked at a refrigerator from GE. This is a GSS 25, $12.99. that compares favorably well to the one on the left. But I got to tell you that when I was online, I saw refrigerators that were priced cheaper than $9.99, other brands cheaper than $9.99. And some of them were even $8.99. Take a look right here. 49 years ago, if I adjust for inflation, which is what I did, $9.99, that refrigerator today should cost $6,251. Ladies and gentlemen, that's inflation. You may remember the Neptune 22 years ago. This is even a shorter time frame. The Maytag Neptune cost $9.99. I went online, found a Whirlpool washer, WFW 5600, being sold online for $8.99. 22 years ago, if I adjust for inflation, that Maytag Neptune today should cost $1,600, almost twice what the Whirlpool washer costs out there today. Amazing, isn't it? And then for those of you that are in the electronics business, I know you know this story well, but 47 years ago, I had a budget. I had a quota for GE. I had to sell a 19-inch TV set for $499, and I had this quota that they expected me to meet every year. 47 years ago, if I fast forward to today, you can buy a 70-inch Vizio TV, okay? And I'm going to read this because I don't know what all this means, but 70-inch class, a 70-inch versus 19-inch, 4K UHD LED smart TV versus a dumb TV. And I got to tell you, GE had the worst pictures in the market. 47 years ago, this TV today would cost $2,647. So when you talk inflation, we've not seen it. I don't think we're going to see it. And even though we've spent $10 trillion, I don't think you'll see it this year. Okay, what about consumer credit? Do consumers have money to spend in credit? Let's take a look. Credit use in last year during this period, we dropped off in a dramatic way, something we don't normally see in America. I said at that point that you'd probably see a direct line of credit use after that. We did see that. And we came up in January slightly. But here's the real story, because you can't see it in this graph. What do we have to spend? And where were we and where are we today? Well, look at this. This is 2008, 2009. We were at $14 trillion in US debt, the highest we'd ever been. You can see it from the graph. Since that time, we've dropped our credit use to about 1/3 down to about $10 trillion. So there is money to spend here in the economy. As you look forward, there's money to spend for your business, and you're going to see an increase as a result of the available credit that's out there in the world today. Let's talk about unemployment and where this is going. I think you need to understand that unemployment is a lagging indicator. It doesn't always tell us exactly where we're at. But let me give you some historical perspective. I need to go back with you back to 2008, 2009. You can see it right here in these numbers. We lost 8.5 million jobs in these 2 years. It took us 2 years to do it. And I said to myself, we'll probably never see numbers like that again, at least in my lifetime, and maybe never again in US history. But lo and behold, what happens in the month of April of this last year, we lose 20.5 million jobs, and the unemployment rate hit 14.7%. I think I could safely say now that this is something that you'll never see again in US history. This is quite the anomaly. So let's look at the jobs report, because this is where all these numbers really come out. February 2021, we added 379,000 jobs last month. That's one of the highest levels in US history. And I got to let you know that on average over the last 10 years, we've averaged somewhere over 200,000 jobs a month. So it's still a really great number from that perspective as well. Private payroll added 465,000 jobs. Private industry put on all these jobs. And you might wonder why there's a difference between that and the total jobs report. The loss was in government jobs. So it means the private sector is doing very well. That's an important consideration for all of us. The US revised January report also went from 49,000, which I originally said was abysmal, to 166,000. Now that's well below our average, but still a pretty good job overall. And I'm more comfortable with that number than I am with 49,000 for sure. But keep in mind that even though we look at numbers like that, 10 million people are still unemployed in America. And that's a lot of people that are either being evicted or not having enough food to eat. It's really a concern in our country. Your business, retail trade. Now this isn't just appliances and furniture and electronics. This is all retail trade, added 41,000 jobs in February. It means that you've had consistently the last 8 or 9 months job gains in the retail trade. And that's good news overall. And then I add this here, leisure and hospitality. We've gained 355,000 jobs in February. This is one of the hardest hit of all the sectors. But when you see a number like that, what it says is that people are getting back on airplanes because we're seeing more go through the TSA check lines. We're seeing more people go back to restaurants, hotels, bars, and you name it. And that gets us back to this level of, are we getting back to some level of normalcy in America? And the answer to that question is yes, we are. Here it is on the graph. You can see we started out here in the April-May timeframe, 14.8 and then 13.3. And then we dropped all the way down until we hit around that 6% level. And we ended in February at 6.2. Now, what does all that mean? Well, I'll say this, that it's easy to gain jobs early in a downturn, but then when you get down to 6%, 5%, it's much more difficult because people become less and less productive when you get down to those lower levels. And you all know that yourselves. Finding employees who are productive in a really good economy is always pretty difficult. But I'll take this number 6.2 and say, hey, we're in a good place right now. This is one of my big concerns is you look at this number right now, when you look at people out of work, we say that if you're out of work for more than a year, that's really a concern. A lot of times when you're out of work for that long, 12 months or more, you're unemployable. Right now, about 40% of Americans who've been out of work for 27 weeks or longer, that's where we're at. That's a concern in America. So this is my best case scenario. This is what I'm going with. You'll see it here, 5.5% unemployment, 60% probability. I'm pretty sure that's where we're going to end up. 7.2, probably not going to happen. Certainly not 9.1 with the variance. So that's a look at unemployment. And I'll leave you with that and we'll go to the next section. Okay, what about housing? I told you last August that housing would be the one thing that would drive us out of recession. That's exactly what happened. Sales of new homes in January 2021 were up 4.3% right here on the graph. Again, you can see this increase that we had after the March-April period. Again, it flattened out and we're in pretty good shape right now with housing. We all feel pretty good about it. Let me give you your region breakdown. If you're in the South, new housing sales were up 3%. If you're in the West, they were up 6.8%. If you're in the Midwest, which seems to be the big area right now, up 12.6, and the Northeast, of course, has lost housing down 14%. So those are the numbers by region. Okay, sales of existing homes. January 2021, let's take a look. We had a really good January right here. Year over year sales up 23%. And again, you see the same pattern, March, April, right here, May, and then you see a rising level, and then it kind of flattens out on the top. This is what we see in most of our graphs, unfortunately. This is builder confidence. Now, I got to tell you guys, when I was at Whirlpool managing most of North America, I had a lot of the builders, and I have friends there, and I still talk to them, and they're very confident today. And you can see this on this graph. This is NAHB. This is their confidence index. We've doubled from where we were April and May. Look at that number there. Builders know today that they can build and they're going to sell every single home, because when they're building homes right now, they're getting people bidding on homes, trying to, get the best price that they can, but still bidding the price up. And there are price wars out there. And this is what this graph's all about. Builders are confident they're going to continue to build, and at someday we're going to catch up to where we're at. Right now, there's a 1.9 month supply of homes out there. This is the lowest that we've ever seen on this graph. This is a concern because the shortage of homes is driving up prices in a dramatic way. Now, why all this talk in the housing industry today? What's driving all this? Well, there's a severe shortage of homes, but the biggest thing that's driving it is interest rates. Keep in mind that you saw interest rates drop to 2.6% this year. And that's the lowest we've ever seen it. I know that there are people probably on this listening to my presentation right now that had interest rates above 10%. I had a 9% rate one time. Today, and I just sent this to Mark, 3.2%. So it's up slightly, but that's just as of this past week. But these interest rates are going to rise. We think they're going to go all the way up to 3.6%. That's going to price some people out of the market, and that's going to hurt this business overall as we get towards the end of the year. Okay, average home price increases. In 2021, we believe it's going to be up 10.2%. That's on top of a 10% increase this past year. Look around your markets, go to the internet and go to Zillow or something, and look at what your house is worth today. I think you'll be shocked to see the increases we've seen in housing in America. So this is good news for you, good news for homeowners, but not for a lot of people, not a lot of other people around. Let's take a look at my predictions for 2021. I believe we'll build 1.3 million living units this year. That's pretty significant. That's up 100,000 from last year. Housing prices, as I said, Case Shiller saying 10.2%. That's a good number. 30-year fixed by year end, I already told you that, up 3.6%. Now, we saw Lowe's and Home Depot report earnings just about a week and a half ago, and they talked about the increase in remodeling from last year and where it's going this year. They were predicting about a 12.4% increase. I believe that's a good number. That's good for your business. People putting in new kitchens, that's the cream of your business in many cases. A lot of that is high-end remodeling, and that's overall, that's good for everybody. There's a record undersupply of homes. I gave you that number. And here's another big one. The price of lumber right now is up 112%. What this means to a consumer is that the average price of the average home is up about $10,000. This is one more hit that can price people out of the price of a home, just like a 3.6% interest rate will do as well. And then millennials, believe it or not, they're now the move-up buyer. It's not the boomers anymore. The boomers are now downsizing and moving to smaller homes. But millennials, the oldest millennial is 40 years old this year. And I remember sitting in meetings at Brand Source where people would come on, the experts on millennials, and they would say that millennials, because of the generation they're in, they're not going to buy homes, they're not going to buy automobiles. Well, I've always believed, and I've always said that people don't act their generation, they act their age. And when you turn 40, what you do is you buy a better home because you have kids and you have better jobs and you're making more money. And that's what we're seeing today. Millennials are going to be the big target audience for you guys in this area of home buying. Now, COVID is still the wild card. I still see that as a problem out there. And we're going to wait and see. I think by the end of March, if we get another spike in America, which I'm hoping we won't, then we'll know. Okay. And then one last thing, and of course, this is the end of the presentation because it's gross domestic product. All these other numbers I've been talking about, they all add up to GDP. GDP is defined as the amount of goods and services that we produce in 1 year in America. You guys are responsible for a lot of that with the product that you sell. But a picture's worth 1,000 words. And look at this line right here going in the downward direction. Hasn't happened in your industry, but in a lot of them that it has. In America, we need to take personal responsibility. We need to do the right things. And if we can keep us from having another spike and we can run ahead of the variance, then we could have a really great year. And I would say a really great 5 years. And I'm going to show you here in a minute. So what did GDP grow in Q4 of this year? Up 4.1%. That's a great number to end the year on. We thought it would be less than that. Consensus was actually about 1.2, and that moves us into January. Let's take a look at where we're going. Okay, so we're projecting right now a 5-year growth of about $5 trillion, and you'll see that right here in these numbers. We expect America to continue to grow at faster than we've grown literally in the last few years. That's good news. We're expecting global GDP to grow over 5, almost 6%. We didn't see that this past year. We saw global GDP actually decline as a result of the various in countries like China and India and Pakistan and you name it around the world. That's also some good news. And I wanted to show you this because it's the next slide that I find so important and so intriguing. But since 1990, we've seen steady growth all the way up to where we are today. I mean, that's people like you, small businesses, big corporations, individuals around America working every year, growing GDP to where we are today. And where does that take America? Where does that take us to in the scheme of things? Well, in 1920, America became the leading producer of products in the world. We became the highest GDP anywhere in the world. We actually surpassed the British Empire in 1920, 100 years ago. And today, we're the leading economy in the world. We are larger than China by $6 trillion. And in order to compare America to any other country in the world, you had to add up the next 9 countries to equal $20.8 trillion. That's where we're at, ladies and gentlemen. We are the leaders, we are the world leaders, and will remain that way for many years to come until China, if they can surpass us, till China surpasses us. Okay, so what's the best case scenario? And I gotta say, I rarely go out on a limb like this. You guys know me, I've rarely missed these numbers over the last 10 years, but I'm gonna go out on a limb here. And I'm gonna tell you that I believe that GDP is gonna come in at 9.8% increase this coming year. That's with 70% probability. Baseline is 4.4. That's a more moderate approach. And I'm going to tell you why here in a second. I don't think we're going to see this one, so I'm not even going to talk about it. So why am I saying 9.8? Well, one of my best sources has always been the Atlanta Fed. I use them for a lot of what I see. They do a great job. You can go online any time of the day or night, and they predict GDP in the future. So let me walk you through what I looked at to get here. Merrill Lynch, a well-respected organization, up 5.5%. Barron's, they're at 5.8%. I call that conservative today. Goldman Sachs, 6.1, a little bit higher. And then the New York Fed, they do a thing called nowcasting. They're at 8.7. But my favorite organization, the Atlanta Fed, is saying 10%. And I believe this is where we're going to come in. When you look at the amount of personal income, the level of savings that's out there, and the trillions of dollars, and you look at credit use in America and what's available to all of the people that come into your store and buy from your businesses, I believe that's where we're going to go. So I'm predicting a very, very good year, especially for your business. Now, what does a post-pandemic world look at? I got to say this, that predictions are still dependent on the spread of the variants. We've basically defeated COVID-19. Those drops that you saw, 70% and 50% and 30% on cases, hospitalizations, and deaths, is a real number and really looks great on paper right now, but the variants are still the concern. Home goods business will remain strong through 2021. That's your business. Experts are saying we could return to some level of normalcy this summer. You can begin traveling again. You begin spending time with your families and your friends. You go out to restaurants. We're going to change the way to back to where we were just a few years ago. Look at the trend lines, because they are out there, they're real, and they're positives. Confidence, even though it's in the mid-range, I'm predicting it's going to go up into that 100 and above level, and it could go even beyond that. Spending will increase. Obviously, that's a given. Savings is out there. That's money to be spent. Credit as well. Housing will be strong, will pull us out of any kind of dip we have. And unemployment, I believe that will continue to drop and employment levels will rise, and that's good for us overall. So thank you all for having me. Love doing this kind of stuff for you. You can visit me at Q for Q with Joe. You can also Google Joe Higgins public speaker. My website comes up. I have a YouTube channel. I have videos, blogs, podcasts, and more on my website. Look forward to seeing you there. Thank you all for having me.